Today, I want to talk about the game industry and my perspective from somebody who grew up in the 80s and 90s. I want to welcome everyone to my first video and enjoy the content. So, I look at the game industry today and it feels vastly different than it did, say even 20 years ago. And I just think that we're heading towards a time where we're not even going to recognize it in the next 20 to 30 years now because it's going to be vastly different again. Back when I was growing up, when you bought a game, you owned the game. You had it on a physical piece of media, whether that was a cartridge or a CD. Now it's all downloaded, and there are several other things you're downloading with it. It's almost like you're not even buying a complete game, it's like you're buying it in pieces. That, and coupled with the fact that the game's budgets are so severely overblown anymore, I can't even see a possible way that these publishers and these developers can even potentially imagine making a profit. Let's take Concord as a perfect example, a recent video game flop. Reports say Sony invested what 200 to maybe 300 million dollars into that project only for it to die in a week. This doesn't bode well for our industry. It really doesn't. And the other problem on top of that is people are so tired of this forced messagings that's being put into their video games. You didn't have to worry about that back then. When you went out and bought a game like, let's say, Mario, for example, nobody was out there forcing Mario to be anything other than Mario. No one was saying, oh, he has to be this and he has to be that. I'm going to try not to get into too many specifics here, but the point still stands is games were not meant to be political messaging of some kind. They were just escapism to another place where you could forget about, real world things. When we were kids, coming home from a long day of school, we just wanted to sit down and play our game. We wanted to go explore as Link in The Legend of Zelda. We wanted to go jump on Goombas as Mario. We wanted to experience stories like in Final Fantasy, things like that. But nowadays, games are so close to reality, there's almost no escapism at all, it feels like. Which is sad, really, because it feels like the fun is just being siphoned out of the game industry and more into it's just business, political propaganda business. And I get it. They have jobs, they need to be paid too. There does need to be a business model behind it. But it's now more about pleasing the shareholders than it is about providing a fun experience for your players, your customer base, the very people who buy your product. And they forget that we have the power to decide in this open market what fails and what succeeds. I feel like the other thing that the game industry now is missing is the social aspect. Sure, you can go online, you can play with your friends, you can put on your headset, you can all have a laugh at goofy things that happen in your game. But when's the last time you played a game with a friend sitting next to you? Sure, there's some rare occasions. You can play Mortal Kombat right now next to somebody. You can load up Diablo 3 and it's got couch co-op. But in all seriousness, how often does that happen? And therein goes the social aspect. Remember GoldenEye on Nintendo 64? You and three other buddies just running around, blowing each other up with proximity mines, just having a blast, having a laugh. No one's taking it seriously. It just doesn't feel like that it's like that anymore. And it's really sad to see. And how do we get back to that? I think the only way we can get back to some semblance of how it used to be is stop buying the AAA games. Go indie if you can. Because those are the guys right now that are making the games with passion. They're not looking at it fully from a profit standpoint. Sure, they need to live too, and they need to make money too. But they are not beholden to any kind of investors or a publisher. They can put that passion in it. I know because I'm working on a game myself. And I'm hoping that I can make something fun and exciting for people. And that basically is me telling you that I have a little bit of experience with this. I know what goes into making a game. And whatever it is that the AAA studios are doing now, I don't know. I don't know what they're doing there, but it doesn't seem like making a fun product is what it is. And that is the key thing right there, fun. Are we having fun with our games anymore? Yeah, sure, there's a few hits that have come out. There's a lot of fun stuff that's still out there, but like most of it just feels like the same grindy nonsense that you just see everywhere. All these publishers and all these developers, they're all doing the same exact thing over and over and over again, expecting it to succeed. And if you ask anyone, they'll tell you the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. That's the game industry, at least the AAA game industry, in a nutshell right now. My only hope going forward at this point is that publishers and developers can start to realize and look back on how things used to be and maybe go back to those roots a little bit. Lower those budgets just a little bit. Focus more on the fun, not the spectacle. We don't need high res graphics, realistic looking things. We don't need the realistic mechanics or physics. We just want something fun and reality escaping, for even if it's for a short period of time. When you come home from work now and you want to load up a video game, the last thing that you really want to be treated with is more real world propaganda and things like that. Let's take the most recent Dragon Age: The Veilguard. I'm very disappointed in that because of the fact of not only have I been waiting a long time for a new Dragon Age game, because the first previous games had a really good story, really good combat mechanics, and it had its own world. And that's the key thing. A whole separate fictional world. It doesn't have to match what we have in our daily lives now. And what are we presented with? Real world things. And it takes you out of it. It really does. And I don't really find any interest in that kind of a thing. I would rather find something that is fun, engaging, and idealistic. Let's take the recent character designs you see right now. I don't want these weird, uglified characters in my game. I want to see something ideal. There's a reason people gravitate to the ideal things. Let's take ancient history and religion. When you see statues of gods and goddesses, what did they look like? They looked like the ideal person, the larger than life. That's why we like our superheroes. That's why we like our celebrities. They're larger than life. Those are things that as humans we want to obtain to be. When I'm playing a game, I don't want to see a character that looks like me. I want to play a character that I strive to look up to. Maybe I want to partially be them to a certain extent because it would be cool. Like, how many people would love to be Conan the Barbarian? That's another thing I used to grow up watching. And I can guarantee you that nowadays, with the way the landscape is, doing Conan the way it was intended, say back in the 80s with Arnold Schwarzenegger, would not fly today. It would be labeled as all kinds of problematic things. And I think you all know what I'm talking about there. But that's what I'm talking about. I just want escapism. I want to see a fantasy world. I want to see things that you can't get in the real world. But there's so much more I can say on this subject, but I'm going to go ahead and end it there. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. I would love to hear from you in the comments. And by all means, please, I just want this to be a place we can talk and hang out and let our opinions be heard. I've stayed in the shadows far long enough that I decided I just want to get my opinion out there. So, again, thank you, and I'm looking forward to reading all of your comments.